Hi and welcome to Cradle. We develop tools for the visual effects industry. This is a documentation video on smartRescue, our free tool that helps you troubleshoot broken Nuke working files that won't open anymore, and it lets you generate information for these. It provides a graphical user interface and lets you handle nodes that match certain patterns and update working files without opening them inside Nuke. First, let's install smartRescue, and then let's explore all of its features. Like any other Cradle product, smartRescue can be installed with Cradle Connect directly inside Nuke. For more information about Connect, please visit the link below. So, open Connect and drag smartRescue to the right to reveal more information. As this is a free tool, all you have to do is clicking the Install button, and smartRescue will be installed automatically on your machine. After the installation is finished, smartRescue can be accessed via Nuke's menu bar. Just click on Cradle, and in here you'll find a new submenu, smartRescue. And this command lets you launch the smartRescue main window. Alternatively, you can launch smartRescue via a batch file. And we also provide baked executables. For more information on that, please have a look at the written smartRescue documentation. Let's now see how smartRescue works. In here I have a working file that won't open anymore. Every time I load this working file, Nuke crashes. Now, there can be multiple reasons for that. Let's rescue that working file so that we don't need to waste several hours rebuilding the node connections. A good starting point in doing so is removing all viewer nodes and all expensive nodes from it that take a long time to process. For the sake of simplicity, let's just remove all viewer nodes from the working file. We can use smartRescue for achieving exactly that with just a few clicks and without opening the actual working files inside Nuke. Because, well, we can't, as it would crash Nuke anyways. So let's launch smartRescue using the batch file. In smartRescue's installation directory, we find a folder called executables that contain batch files to launch smartRescue. As I'm on a Mac platform, I'll click the execute Mac batch file. As a small tip, you can also create an alias to this batch file and then quickly start it via your terminal like so. For more information on that, please have a look at the written documentation. The first time you launch smartRescue in standalone mode, you'll be asked to set the Nuke installation route. smartRescue needs this information so that it can run the steps that we're about to set up in a second. So let's point to the Nuke installation route. smartRescue will scan this route for a Nuke executable automatically. As this has been set up, we are now ready to use smartRescue. First, let's define which working file we would like to rescue. For that, we can simply drag and drop a Nuke working file onto smartRescue. Alternatively, we can drag and drop a whole folder onto smartRescue and it will scan for Nuke working files. These files will then be processed in batch. We can also simply click in the middle, and this opens a browser that we can use to set the process folder. Let's keep this simple and just drag our Nuke working file onto our window. The layout changes and we have now full access to our steps. In here we can enable and disable several steps. A step is a process that runs over your working file and handles certain nodes that match a certain pattern. This will get a lot clearer in just a second. In this example, we want to get rid of all viewer nodes. So let's enable the step called Nodes by class by clicking the small checkbox in here so that it turns blue. In here we can expand the step to access its settings. Each step contains a detailed explanation and some setup examples so that we can easily try out different setups. Using this drop-down menu, we can configure how to handle matching nodes. We can choose from delete to delete the nodes, disable to disable the nodes, and disconnect to disconnect the nodes from the stream. Let's choose delete. In the node classes widget, we can define the node classes that we want to delete. Click the plus button. In here we can enter the name of the node class, which is viewer in our case. If required, we can also add more classes by just clicking the plus button. For now, let's just delete all viewer nodes. And that's pretty much everything that needs to be set up. So to recap, select the step to run, select the mode, and set up the pattern. You can of course also select multiple steps and these will then run over your working file one after the other. In order to run the step over the working file, click the blue process button at the bottom. On the right, we see the job log for our process, which will also be added in a text file to the parent directory of our working file if we have configured to do so. A new working file has been created, which is labeled with the current date and time. So each time we process, we can now create new copies in which we can quickly try out different setups to see if we can reopen our broken working file. By default, smartRescue does not process the steps on the original working file. However, you can configure smartRescue to explicitly do so if you want. Let's briefly walk through all steps. The All Nodes step lets you handle all nodes and skip certain node classes. This can be useful, for example, if you want a copy of a working file that just includes all read nodes. Or just all read nodes and write nodes, you decide. Nodes by name lets you handle nodes with certain names. For instance, let's disconnect write 1 and write 3. We've already seen nodes by class. That lets us handle nodes of certain classes. Let's for instance say we want to get rid of all the focus nodes. Done. Nodes by knob value pattern is a more advanced step. It lets you handle nodes where a given knob has a certain value pattern. Let's for instance remove all nodes where the label contains the word heavy. Keep in mind that you can also use regular expressions in here. For more examples, please refer to the info which can be accessed right here or in the written documentation. As already mentioned, all steps contain an info and some examples that you can view by toggling the info button. Nodes by knob values is an interesting step. In here you can handle nodes of a certain node class where a certain knob matches a certain pattern. Let's say I want to disconnect all blur nodes where the size knob is bigger than 50, and probably add some more patterns. Copy line uses a different approach. It lets you copy just between the given lines. Everything outside this range won't be copied to the rescue copy file. This can sometimes be very useful when you are not sure where exactly your working file breaks. For example, simply copy over the first 1000 lines of your broken file and see if it launches. If it does, copy over the next 1000 lines, and so on. You can also copy over all lines except the last, let's say, 100 lines. Simply enter -100. Replace by pattern is another step that lets you use regular expressions to replace a match with a new value. Remove non-ASCII will remove all non-ASCII characters from a working file. Non-ASCII characters have high chances to break a working file, and this step lets you easily remove all of these with just one click. Finally, script info does not alter the working file, but will give you valuable information about the working file and statistics about used nodes. Now, if you have some programming knowledge, you can create your own steps and add them to smartRescue. Steps logic can be as simple as just containing a few lines of code, up to several hundred lines of code. The pre-built steps are in that range, and it totally depends on what your steps should perform. If you want to know more about how to create your own steps and integrating them into smartRescue, please have a look at the written documentation. Finally, let's have a brief look at smartRescue settings. For that, let's click the Settings button. In here we have several options. For example, we can set the logging level of our process. We can also set up to ignore certain Nuke working files in our process folder. In here we can enable or disable to run the steps on the original file, or creating a copy of the working file that gets created next to the original file and running them on this copy. By default, smartRescue operates on a working file copy, as we have already seen in our process example. Here you can enable or disable creating a log next to the generated file. By default, this option is on. In here you can switch Nuke executables in case you need a different executable. This is only available when running in standalone mode. And using this button, you can quickly reach the written documentation, which covers an in-depth description of all aspects of smartRescue. So, this was a documentation video on smartRescue, our free tool to help you troubleshoot broken Nuke working files and gain information and statistics about them.